The massive Imperial warship emerged from hyperspace just beyond Earth's moon, its dark metal hull blocking out the stars behind it. In the United Earth Defense Headquarters, Admiral James Stone watched the main screen with steady eyes, while others around him gasped or whispered in fear. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," reported Captain Miller, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "They're demanding immediate communication." Stone straightened his uniform and nodded. "Put them through." The screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, imposing figure in an ornate military uniform. The alien's gray skin and multiple eyes might have been shocking once, but humanity had prepared for this moment for decades. "I am High Commander Reed of the Galactic Imperial Fleet," the alien announced, its translator converting the words to perfect English. "Your primitive world has been chosen for integration into our glorious empire. Surrender now, and your transition will be peaceful." Admiral Stone's expression remained neutral. "High Commander, I am Admiral James Stone of the United Earth Defense Force. We welcome peaceful contact with the Galactic Empire, but Earth is not interested in surrender or forced integration." Reed's multiple eyes blinked in what appeared to be amusement. "You misunderstand, Admiral. This is not a negotiation. Our scans show your technology level. You have barely reached your moon. Your weapons are primitive. Your ships are slow. Resistance would be pointless." Behind Stone, the command center staff continued their work silently. Hidden defense platforms around Earth powered up. Stealth satellites tracked every Imperial ship that dropped out of hyperspace. The entire Ghost Fleet sat ready in underground bases across the planet. "High Commander," Stone spoke carefully, "I strongly suggest you reconsider your approach. Humanity has a saying, 'Don't judge a book by its cover.'" Reed made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your idioms mean nothing. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Your species is nothing special." "Then let me be clearer." Stone's voice hardened. "If you attempt to force Earth's surrender, you will face consequences beyond your imagination. We are giving you one chance to withdraw and return for peaceful negotiations." The alien commander's expression shifted to what might have been anger. "You dare threaten the Imperial fleet? Perhaps a demonstration is needed." Reed turned to speak to someone off-screen. "Target their moonbase. Low-yield weapons only. We don't want to damage their planet's orbit. This is your final warning," Stone said, his voice deadly calm. "Run." The transmission cut off. In orbit, 3 Imperial destroyers moved toward the moon. Their weapons charge, green energy building along their hulls. "Sir," Captain Miller reported, "all defense systems are ready. Ghost Fleet is in position. Should we reveal our capabilities?" Stone watched the Imperial ships for a long moment. "No, let them make their mistake. But the moment they fire on our moon base, you have authorization to execute Protocol Omega." The command center fell silent as they watched the Imperial ships take up attack positions. The moon base, home to 500 civilians and scientists, broadcast desperate signals asking for mercy. The Imperial ships fired. Their green energy beams never reached the moon's surface. Instead, they splashed harmlessly against an invisible barrier, dissipating into harmless light. "Shield holding at 99%, reported Lieutenant Rogers. "The enemy appears confused, sir." On the main screen, the Imperial ships hung motionless for several seconds. Then they fired again, with the same result. Admiral Stone pressed a button on his chair. "This is Admiral Stone to High Commander Reed. That was your first and last free shot. I suggest you consider your next action very carefully." The response was immediate and angry. "Impossible. You cannot have shield technology. Our scans." "Your scans showed exactly what we wanted them to show," Stone interrupted. "This is humanity's final warning. Leave our solar system now or face the consequences." "You dare," Reed began, but his transmission suddenly cut off as new alarms blared in the command center. "Sir," Captain Miller called out, "the Imperial fleet is charging weapons. All ships. They're targeting Earth directly. Stone's expression hardened. He'd given them every chance. Execute Protocol Omega. All units, weapons free. Show them exactly what humanity can do. Around Earth, thousands of previously invisible defense platforms shimmered into view. The Ghost Fleet rose from hidden bases on the dark side of the moon, and humanity's first interstellar war began. High Commander Reed was about to learn why you should always listen when someone suggests running. The first shots from the Imperial fleet lit up Earth's night sky like new stars. Their green energy beams struck Earth's shields, creating spectacular auroras across both poles. In the command center, Admiral Stone watched the light show with grim satisfaction. Shields holding at 95%, Captain Miller reported calmly. The Imperial fleet appears stunned by our defenses, sir. Good. Stone turned to his tactical display. Now, let's show them our teeth. General Thompson, you may begin Ghost Fleet operations. High above Earth, the true battle began. The Ghost Fleet ships, completely invisible to Imperial sensors, struck from nowhere. Their black hulls absorbed all light, making them nearly impossible to see even with the naked eye. The first Imperial ship exploded before they realized they were under attack. What sorcery is this? High Commander Reed's voice boomed across all frequencies, his translator unable to hide his shock. Show yourselves, cowards. Cowards. Stone's reply was cold. You attacked a peaceful world without provocation. You threatened our people. And now you're angry because we fight back. 3 more Imperial ships erupted in flames. The Ghost Fleet moved like shadows between the stars, their quantum torpedoes passing straight through Imperial shields as if they weren't there. The Empire's mighty warships, used to fighting head-on battles with equally massive opponents, had no defense against an enemy they couldn't see or detect. But High Commander Reed wasn't the Empire's military leader for nothing. He quickly ordered his fleet to regroup, forming a defensive sphere. You cannot hide forever, he broadcast, and we have more ships than you could possibly imagine. Sir, Lieutenant Rogers called out, Imperial reinforcements dropping out of hyperspace. 50 more ships, including 2 dreadnoughts. Stone nodded. This was expected. Launch the Ravens. From Earth's surface, thousands of small dark objects rose into space. Each one was barely larger than a car, but they carried humanity's latest weapon, combat A-drones. The Empire had banned artificial intelligence centuries ago, believing it too dangerous. They weren't prepared for what happened next. The Ravens swarmed through space like angry insects, their advanced AI systems coordinating perfectly. They slipped through gaps in Imperial formation that human pilots could never have managed. Their small size made them nearly impossible to hit, and their weapons were designed specifically to target Imperial weak points. Impossible. Reed's voice cracked with disbelief. Your technology. You were supposed to be primitives. Stone allowed himself a small smile. We warned you to run. We tried to avoid this. Computer, show tactical display. The main screen lit up with the battle scene. Imperial ships were scattered across space, many burning or broken. The mighty dreadnoughts turned their guns in every direction, trying to hit enemies they couldn't see or predict. The Ghost Fleet and Ravens had already destroyed 20% of their forces. But then Reed made his fatal mistake. If you will not submit, the Imperial commander snarled, then perhaps you need motivation. His remaining ships turned toward Mars, where human colonies housed thousands of civilians. Surrender now, or we will show you the true power of the Imperial fleet. Stone's expression turned to stone. All units, execute Battle Plan Delta. Protection of Mars colonies is priority 1. Show them no mercy. The battle shifted in an instant. The Ghost Fleet decloaked, revealing sleek, dark ships that seemed to absorb light itself. The Ravens formed attack formations that looked like abstract art in space. And from Earth, a new wave of ships emerged, the heavy cruisers humanity had kept hidden for exactly this moment. You had your chance to leave. Stone broadcast to the Imperial fleet. You had your chance to run. Now you'll learn why humanity spent the last 50 years preparing for this day. The battle that followed would be written about in history books across the galaxy. It was the day the mighty Imperial fleet learned that appearances could be deceiving. It was the day they learned that humans didn't just build weapons, they revolutionized warfare itself. And it was just the beginning of humanity's rise among the stars. 2 weeks after the Battle of Mars, the Imperial fleet learned that defeat in one battle was just the beginning of their problems. Their supply ships kept disappearing. Communications stopped working. Entire convoys vanished without a trace. In his new command ship, High Commander Reed stared at reports of another lost supply fleet. How? He demanded. How are they striking so far from their home system? His second-in-command had no answer. The humans were fighting like nothing they'd seen before. Meanwhile, aboard the stealth carrier Night Shadow, Admiral Stone studied a holographic map showing Imperial supply routes. Red dots marked successful human attacks. There were many red dots. Report on Operation Wildfire, Stone ordered. Captain Miller stepped forward with a tablet. Ghost Fleet raids have cut Imperial supply lines by 60%. Their outer colonies are starting to feel the pressure. Best of all, they still don't know how we're doing it. The humans had discovered something the Empire never considered: the gaps between space lanes. While Imperial ships always traveled on established routes, human vessels slipped through unmapped spaces, striking from directions the Empire thought impossible. Show me the AI prediction for their next major supply run, Stone said. The hologram shifted, showing a complex web of possible routes. The Raven's combat AI had analyzed Imperial shipping patterns for weeks. It could now predict their movements with 95% accuracy. Here, Miller pointed to a bright line. Their biggest supply fleet in 3 months will pass through this sector tomorrow. 20 cargo ships carrying fuel, weapons, and food. Stone studied the route. And their escort. 5 destroyers. They're learning, but not fast enough. Good. Stone turned to his tactical officer. Alert Ghost Fleet Squad 7. Standard hit and fade tactics. I want those supplies taken. The next day, the Imperial supply fleet moved through what they thought was safe space. Their escort ships scanned constantly for threats, but they were looking in the wrong places. The attack came from above and below the space lane. Directions Imperial doctrine said were impossible to approach from. 6 Ghost Fleet ships appeared from nowhere, their new quantum disruptors shutting down Imperial engines before they could react. Status report, Stone demanded, watching the operation from Night Shadow. All Imperial ships disabled, Miller reported. Our boarding teams are moving in. No casualties on either side. This was another thing that confused the Empire. Humans tried to avoid killing when possible. They disabled ships, took supplies, and left crews in escape pods. It wasn't their way to needlessly kill. Back in his command ship, Reed received news of another lost fleet. In rage, he smashed his tactical display. Find them, he roared. I don't care how. Find their bases, their staging points, anything. But there were no bases to find. The Ghost Fleet never stayed in one place. They used small mobile repair ships hidden in asteroid fields. Their fuel came from secret gas mining operations in uninhabited systems. Every ship carried enough supplies for months of independent operation. Stone's next target was even bolder. The Imperial shipyards at their core worlds are vulnerable, he told his officers. They never expected an enemy to reach so far behind their lines. They have minimal defenses. Sir, Miller smiled, the Ravens have already plotted 15 different approach vectors. The Empire's own patrol patterns will hide our movement. The Empire had built their defense strategy around big fleets, direct battles, and overwhelming force. They didn't understand this new kind of war: quick strikes, invisible enemies, and an opponent who thought in 3 dimensions instead of 2. In his command chair, Stone remembered Earth's military history. We learned centuries ago that the biggest army doesn't always win. Speed, surprise, and intelligence matter more than size. The next phase was about to begin. While the Empire fortified their borders against an invasion that would never come, humanity's ships were already behind their lines, preparing strikes that would shake the Imperial core worlds. "Send the orders," Stone commanded. "All Ghost Fleet units, execute Operation Shadow Strike. Show them nowhere in their empire is safe." The Empire was about to learn another harsh lesson. They hadn't just started a war with humans. They'd started a war with masters of asymmetric warfare who had spent 50 years planning for this exact scenario. The Imperial High Command met in their fortified bunker deep beneath their capital world. The room was filled with tension as High Commander Reed presented the latest battle reports. 3 more shipyards destroyed, 2 major fleet bases disabled, supply lines in chaos. Reed's voice was heavy. "The humans are not fighting like a primitive species should." General Roberts, watching through secure quantum channels from his Earth Command Center, smiled as his spies transmitted the meeting's details. The Empire still hadn't realized that their unhackable communications were an open book to human AI systems. The latest psychological warfare attack was particularly effective. Captain Miller reported to the general. "When we broadcast scenes of their defeated ships across their civilian networks, 3 Imperial worlds requested peace talks." The Empire's biggest weakness was now clear. They couldn't handle losing. Their propaganda had taught their citizens that the Imperial fleet was invincible. Each defeat cracked that belief a little more. Inside the Imperial bunker, a young commander stood up. "Why don't we gather our full fleet for one massive attack? Crush their home system with overwhelming force." Reed shook his head. "We tried. 3 times we gathered our ships. 3 times they disappeared before reaching Earth. These humans," he paused, "they don't fight like warriors. They fight like ghosts." On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Stone and General Roberts prepared humanity's first major offensive. The time for raids and guerrilla attacks was ending. Now they would show the Empire their true power. "Operation Thunderstrike is ready," Stone announced to Earth's unified military council. "We've spent 3 months weakening their defenses. Now we strike at their heart." The holographic display showed their target, the Empire's largest military production center. The facility built their most powerful warships and created their most advanced weapons. The Empire thought it was completely safe, protected by 3 layers of defense fleets. They were wrong. "Launch the first phase," Stone ordered. Across Imperial space, every human ship attacked at once. Ghost fleet vessels appeared inside planetary defense rings. Ravens swarmed military bases. Even small human merchant ships revealed hidden weapons. The Empire's forces scattered, trying to defend everywhere at once. "Sir," Miller reported, "Imperial forces are responding exactly as predicted. They're pulling ships from their core worlds to defend the outer regions." Stone nodded. "This was human strategy at its finest. Make the enemy think they know your plan, then surprise them with something completely different." In the Imperial bunker, Reed was organizing the defense when a junior officer burst in. "Sir, multiple unknown contacts approaching the shipyards." "Impossible." Reed checked the tactical display. "All human forces are attacking our outer worlds. Where did these ships come from?" The answer appeared in the form of 200 human warships dropping out of quantum space. They were bigger than anything humans had shown before, bristling with weapons that even the Empire's best scientists didn't understand. "This is Admiral Stone to all Imperial forces." The transmission went out on all frequencies. "Your shipyards are now under our guns. Surrender the facility, and no lives will be lost." Reed watched in horror as his carefully positioned defenses crumbled. The human ships moved with impossible precision, their formations shifting like a single organism. Behind them came the Ravens, their AI systems already taking control of Imperial automated defenses. "How?" Reed demanded. "How did you build these ships without us knowing?" Stone's reply was calm. "We didn't build them recently. We built them over 50 years. hiding them in underground bases across 100 worlds. While you watched Earth, you never thought to check the empty systems you considered worthless. The battle for the shipyards lasted less than an hour. When it was over, the Empire's largest military production facility was under human control. More importantly, the myth of Imperial invincibility was shattered forever. In his command ship, Stone watched the Imperial forces retreat. Send word to Earth. Phase 1 of Operation Thunderstrike is complete. Begin Phase 2. The Empire was about to learn that they hadn't just awakened a sleeping giant. They'd awakened a giant that had been quietly preparing for war while pretending to sleep. The Imperial War College was in chaos. Hundreds of veteran commanders argued over tactical displays showing their latest defeats. In the center of the room, High Commander Reed watched another simulation end in Imperial failure. "I don't understand," an old admiral growled. "We're following the same tactics that won us 1,000 wars. Why aren't they working?" "Because," Reed said quietly, "the humans aren't fighting the war we want them to fight." On the main screen, footage showed human ships doing things Imperial doctrine said were impossible. They appeared from nowhere, changed direction faster than any ship should, and used weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Meanwhile, aboard the Earth flagship Innovator, Admiral Stone reviewed the latest breakthrough from the Science Division. The holographic display showed a new weapon that even he found hard to believe. "You're saying we can now teleport torpedoes directly into their ships?" Stone asked Director Anderson, his chief scientist. "Yes, sir. By using quantum entanglement principles we discovered in their own databases, principles they never thought to weaponize." Anderson smiled. "Sometimes the best ideas are the ones your enemy thinks are useless." The next battle proved this point perfectly. An Imperial battle group, following their ancient combat doctrine, formed a perfect defensive sphere. It was a formation that had worked for centuries, until human quantum torpedoes appeared inside their shields, bypassing their defenses completely. "Imperial Battle Group 7 has surrendered," Captain Miller reported. "No casualties. Their engines and weapons are disabled." Stone nodded. This was the human way of war. Win without needless death when possible. Send in the boarding teams. Standard procedure. The Empire's rigid military structure was proving to be their greatest weakness. Their officers couldn't adapt to human tactics because they weren't allowed to think creatively. Every action had to follow 1,000-year-old doctrines. "Sir," Miller called out, "Imperial Command has ordered all their forces to fall back to defensive positions around their core worlds." "Just as predicted," Stone replied. "They're following their ancient defensive protocols, exactly what we wanted them to do." The humans had spent decades studying Imperial military documents, finding patterns and weaknesses. While the Empire thought they were being mysterious and unpredictable, they were actually being more predictable than they knew. Back in the Imperial War College, Reed watched another simulation end in defeat. "Show me their attack patterns again," he ordered. The display lit up with hundreds of human raids and strikes. Each one seemed random. But Reed was starting to see something the others missed. The humans weren't just attacking. They were herding Imperial forces exactly where they wanted them. "They're thinking 4 moves ahead," Reed whispered. "While we react, they're already planning our reactions." In Earth's command center, General Roberts received Reed's transmission intercept. He's finally starting to understand. Roberts told Stone over their secure channel. But it's too late. Stone agreed. The Empire's forces were now clustered around their core worlds, exactly as planned. They thought they were following their best defensive doctrines. Instead, they'd walked right into humanity's trap. "Begin Operation Checkmate," Stone ordered. Across Imperial space, human ships suddenly appeared in completely new configurations. The Ghost Fleet vessels linked together into larger battle groups. The Ravens formed massive swarms, and from quantum space came humanity's newest ships, carrying weapons the Empire had never seen. "Send the message to all Imperial forces," Stone commanded. The transmission was simple. "You can either adapt or you can lose. Your choice." The Empire had spent centuries perfecting their way of war. They'd conquered 1,000 worlds using the same tactics, the same strategies, the same thoughts. Now they faced an enemy who changed tactics in the middle of battle, who turned their own technology against them, and who saw war not as a set of rules to follow, but as a puzzle to solve. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and the Empire was about to learn why innovation beats tradition when survival is on the line. The Imperial Palace shook as protesters filled the streets outside. Signs in 100 alien languages demanded peace with Earth. The war had gone on for 6 months, and the mighty Empire was crumbling from within. High Commander Reed stood before the Imperial Council, his uniform no longer as crisp as it once was. Our supply lines are cut. 20 colony worlds have declared independence. Our fleets are scattered. He paused. We must consider the humans' peace terms. Impossible, shouted one of the council members. We cannot show weakness. We already are weak, Reed replied quietly. We just didn't know it until now. On Earth, Admiral Stone watched real-time footage of the protests across Imperial space. The human strategy had worked perfectly. They hadn't just fought the Empire's military. They had shown the Empire's citizens a better way. Sir, Captain Miller reported, 3 more Imperial battle groups have surrendered. Their crews are requesting asylum. This was another thing the Empire hadn't expected. When captured Imperial soldiers saw how humans treated their own people, with respect, freedom, and dignity, many decided they preferred the human way of life. The Empire's economy is collapsing. Director Anderson added, showing economic charts. Without their supply lines, without their trade routes, their whole system is falling apart. Stone nodded. This had been part of the plan from the start. Humans knew that wars weren't won just by battles, but by breaking the enemy's will to fight. In his private chambers, the Imperial Emperor watched his empire crumble. The humans had done something no enemy had managed in 10,000 years. They had made the Empire look weak. Show me the human terms again, he ordered his advisors. The terms were simple. 1. The Empire would recognize Earth and all human colonies as independent too. They would pay reparations for their initial attack. 3. Any Imperial world that wanted independence would be granted it. 4. The Empire would have to reduce its military to defensive forces only. And if we refuse? The Emperor asked. His advisor played a message from Admiral Stone. Then we'll continue dismantling your empire piece by piece, without destroying it. We'll free your worlds one by one, protect them with our fleet, and show them what real freedom looks like. Back on the human flagship, Innovator, Stone received an urgent message. Imperial commanders across 3 sectors had mutinied, declaring they would no longer fight for a losing cause. The Empire's military is breaking apart, General Roberts reported from Earth. Their rigid command structure is becoming their downfall. When the top fails, the whole system fails. Stone walked to the tactical display, studying the Empire's remaining forces. What had started as the largest fleet in the galaxy was now reduced to scattered battle groups, many of which were surrendering without a fight. Send the message to all Imperial worlds, Stone ordered. Tell them Earth is ready for peace talks whenever they're ready to be honest about it. The response came faster than anyone expected. The Imperial Council, facing revolution at home and defeat in space, voted to accept human terms. Only the Emperor's signature was needed to end the war. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor watched crowds gathering outside. They weren't just protesters now. They were citizens demanding change. The Empire had always ruled through fear and strength. But the humans had shown that fear had limits, and strength wasn't just about military power. Bring me the peace document, he finally ordered. As Stone read the Emperor's response, he thought about how the war had changed both sides. The Empire had learned that tradition without innovation leads to defeat. The humans had proven that intelligence and adaptability could overcome any obstacle. Send word to Earth, Stone commanded. The Empire has agreed to peace. Operation Liberation is complete. The war that was supposed to be a simple conquest had changed the galaxy forever. The mighty empire had been humbled not by brute force, but by human ingenuity, adaptability, and a fundamental understanding of how to win without destroying. The stars would never be the same again. The Imperial Senate Hall had never seen anything like this. For the first time in its 10,000-year history, a representative of a victor stood before them not to demand submission, but to offer partnership. Admiral Stone walked to the center of the vast chamber, his footsteps echoing. Representatives from 10,000 worlds watched in silence. The same Imperial senators who once voted for Earth's conquest now waited to hear what humans would do with their victory. 6 months ago, Stone began, "You came to Earth demanding our surrender. You thought us primitive because we hadn't spread across the stars like you had. That was your first mistake." The senators shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Through the huge windows behind them, Earth ships could be seen in orbit, a reminder of how completely things had changed. "Your second mistake," Stone continued, "was believing that conquering worlds made you superior. We had something you'd forgotten long ago. The drive to innovate, to adapt, to become better than we were yesterday." In the front row, High Commander Reed nodded slightly. He had learned this lesson the hard way. "But we're not here to humiliate you." Stone's voice softened. "We're here to show you a better way. Earth doesn't want an empire. We want allies." The senators murmured in surprise. This was not how conquering species usually talked. On screens across the galaxy, billions watched as Stone laid out humanity's vision for the future. Trade routes would reopen, but with free trade instead of imperial control. Worlds that wanted independence would get it, but with human protection to prevent chaos. Most importantly, Stone announced, "We will share our technology, our innovations, and our way of thinking with any world that wants to learn. The age of conquest is over. The age of cooperation begins today." In Earth's command center, General Roberts watched the speech with pride. "Show them the numbers," he sent through Stone's secure channel. Stone activated a holographic display in the Senate chamber. It showed the incredible progress made by worlds that had already accepted human guidance. "These planets have doubled their production and improved their citizens' lives in just 2 months," Stone explained. "Not through conquest or control, but through human innovation and creativity." The Emperor, watching from his throne above the Senate floor, realized something profound. The humans hadn't just defeated the Empire, they had made it obsolete. "We offer membership in the new Galactic Alliance," Stone continued, "not as subjects, but as equals. Each world free to govern itself, but united for trade, defense, and progress." The Senate chamber erupted in discussion. This was more than a peace treaty. It was a complete transformation of galactic society. "And if we refuse?" asked one senator. Stone smiled. "Then we wish you well and leave you in peace. But ask yourself, do you want to be left behind while the rest of the galaxy moves forward?" The vote that followed was the fastest in Imperial Senate history. World after world chose to join the alliance. Even the Emperor, seeing the overwhelming support, gave his blessing. As Stone left the Senate chamber, High Commander Reed approached him. "You could have destroyed us," Reed said quietly. "Why didn't you?" "Because destruction is easy," Stone replied. "Building something better is harder, but worth it. That's the human way." Back on the Innovator, Stone looked at the latest reports. Already, human innovation was spreading across former Imperial worlds. Ships were being redesigned, cities rebuilt, lives improved. "Sir," Captain Miller reported, "we're getting requests for human teachers from over 1,000 worlds. They all want to learn our way of thinking." Stone nodded. This was humanity's true victory, not defeating the Empire, but showing the galaxy a better path. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered. "Mission accomplished." The real work begins now. The stars had changed forever. The species that the Empire once dismissed as primitive had become teachers to the galaxy. And somewhere out there, maybe other empires were watching, learning an important lesson. Never underestimate humans. They don't just win wars. They change the rules of the game itself.